Hey, what's up, my folks? I hope you're having a happy day because I am. I'm actually Mr. Pitchman, Ed Garza, and I'm with another funny and fun guy, Laughter. Hopefully, we create a great process here for you to understand what it means to protect your life. And when it comes to having the proper insurance in your life, at the correct premium so you're not overpaying your premium. And that right now we're with Nicholas Davis with Reclaim Your Premium. This is his baby. So I want to get to know him a little bit. So let me ask you, Nicholas, how'd you get started in the industry? Tell us a little story, how you got into this industry in the first place, and how did Reclaim Your Premium come about?
Well, it's a very interesting story, I think. So basically, okay, so right before this, I was doing engineering. And you might ask yourself, like, engineering to health insurance, that's a pretty big swing. Like, why, right? Well, specifically, what's going on? So as I was in my last career, right? I ended up getting laid off, right? And like a lot of people did, like right when the pandemic started, basically. And I was faced with a lot of decisions at the time, right? So the first thing is, single dad of triplets. So I got a lot of responsibility behind my belt to make sure that my kids are protected, which is a big deal, right? So after I was laid off for that company, I was offered Cobra Insurance. Now, Cobra Insurance is a continuation of
Oh,
benefits. Dude, I know, 100%, dude.
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
continuation of benefits from your last job, right? Now, here's the rules behind Cobra Insurance. It's very interesting. Not a lot of people know this, right? So Cobra Insurance, the company that you leave has 30 days to get you your Cobra documents. They're going to wait basically the 30 days because you're no
Yep.
longer important to them because you're not, their people anymore, right? So I was laid off on September 26th, right? So it took me till October 26th to get my Cobra documents, right? So I'm thinking, okay, I've got this whole like space essentially where I didn't know if I had health insurance or not, right? So I finally get it, and I'm like, all right, cool. So I called the Cobra guys. I'm like, hey man, I since October already happened, I need coverage for November now. And they're like, oh, okay, well, first that's 102 markup, 102% markup from what you currently were paying. I'm like, that's a lot. And they're like, yep. And you can't just get coverage for November. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Why can't I do that? And they're like, well, it's retroactive. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be retroactive. Like, I didn't need it. And they're like, well, that's how the system works. So how the system works, if you want coverage for November, you have to purchase the last bit of September, all of October, and all of November. And I'm like, bro, you realize I don't have a job right now? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, that's just not going to fly, right? So then I checked out the Affordable Care Act, the marketplace, healthcare marketplace, healthcare.gov. It's all the same thing, right? Checked out those guys. As soon as I got on there, the first thing I noticed is there was no PPO option. And I'm like, at the time, I didn't really know what PPO meant. All I knew is you just took care of my kids, right? And so I was like, well, that's strange. It doesn't have a PPO option there. Weird. So it has this HMO thing and this EPO thing. Well, I knew HMO. Only reason why is because my HR people never really explained what the difference was between everything else. And so I just did it 1 year for fun, like literally. I was like, for fun, let's see what this is here. So I did it, and it was honestly, in my experience, was completely terrible, just because I couldn't find anything at all in the network. Literally at one point in time, I called Cigna, and I'm like, where's this network you speak of? I could not find it. And so they told me it was just, geographically restricted to a tiny area around my zip code. I'm like, well, that's lame, but whatever. So anyway, after doing that, I freaked out. I was like, well, what do I do? So after 630 plus resumes getting sent out, getting told I'm too old, like too overqualified, I had too much experience, or they couldn't afford me, but wanted me essentially. So it was like all of those, beautiful chestnuts that make completely no sense in the job searching industry. Um, After all of that, I was able to luckily get my kids covered underneath the state plan. So that was great. And then I was just like, man, I'm worried about myself. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, honestly, maybe I should pivot, right? Because I mean, this obviously isn't working, because where I was at in my engineering career, I had made it to a level where I was no longer just in the US market. I was in the global market, which is kind of cool, right? And so I was like, well, maybe I'll just reassess, right? So I decided to kind of do a root cause analysis, which is basically asking why until you can't ask why anymore, right? Do a root cause analysis based on every single job I've done or every single profession I've held, right?
Right.
So those professions are as follows, basically. I've been a professional dancer. I've danced with people from every continent on the planet, with the exception of Antarctica. I've been a professional musician. I've done gigs, tours, shows, albums, record labels, whole nine yards. I've run skateboard shops, inline skate shops, bicycle shops, brought them from a teeny tiny shop to international recognition, which is really, really, really rad. Had customers all over the world. I've done biomechanics as well, like straightening skeletal structures to make sure that, people's skeletons don't collapse, make sure their backs don't hurt, stuff like that. And then what I did here is I took biomechanics, married the mechanical knowledge from bicycle mechanics, threw in a little bit of applied physics, a little bit of metallurgy, and then did a little bit of kind of guesstimation and math almost, and figured out the flex that would be applied per pedal stroke when somebody rides a bicycle, right? And by doing that, what I ended up being is a master bike fitter. I ended up fitting professional athletes on bicycles, so that way they could get the most efficient pedal stroke per stride, which is great, right?
Interesting.
Ended up doing that. It was lots of fun, right? So while I was doing that, that's when I got recruited for engineering, which was lots of fun, right? So here I am doing my thing. One of my buddies who I'm riding with a lot, he's like, "Hey man, have you ever thought about doing something that you're not really doing all the time?" And I'm like, "Bro, I got ADHD. My brain doesn't stop. It just all the time. So yes." And he was like, "Okay, cool." He's like, "Would you like to get paid to break things for a living?" And I'm like, "Who wouldn't want to get paid to break things for a living? That's the real question we should all ask ourselves, right?" And he was like, "Okay, great, right on." So he was like, he brought me into the engineering world, right? I was the first person at that company to do what I was doing without an engineering degree, which is pretty cool. I have a marketing degree. So in 5.5 years, I went from the person who was literally sweeping the floors to running the largest oil and gas testing facility in the entire United States of America and becoming an authority in the Western hemisphere of the planet for certain things that I was the only person allowed to do. I was like super jazzed out. It was like a huge crowning achievement of mine. So that's why when I say it took me a long time to find a job, because I was at that level, I only had 3 other people in the United States that were doing kind of what I was doing,
Sure.
basically. And we were all on a team together. Or sorry, not 3 people in the United States, 3 people in the world that were doing what I was doing. And all 4 of us were a team, technically, right? And so that was a big deal. So finding a new job was a big deal. So after I did all that stuff, I did a root cause analysis, and I was like, what's the glue that holds all of these little bitty things together? Because they're very, very, very different professions, right? And the glue that I found that held everything together is I like to help people. But I can't make a career being like, I want to help people, because like everybody wants to help people. You got to have a specialty. So then I thought about it for a little bit, and I was like, well, what gave me the most grief lately? And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. So health insurance. Here I am, a guy that just wrote an SOP, a standard operation procedure manual, to measure the stretch of material using light waves, and I couldn't figure out health insurance. And I was like, there's something up with this, for sure. So I figured if I have this many questions about it, I'm sure somebody else does. So what I did is I went ahead and did a lot of schooling, a lot of testing, a lot of studying, and getting fingerprinted by the FBI, state seals from local state governments that I'm licensed in now. And now I'm regulated by the Federal Trade Commission, all the fun things in the universe. And now I can help individuals in the same position I was not be freaked out if they don't know their options. I can help them along that period, right? Not to mention, I've expanded, and now I can help teeny tiny businesses as well, like mom and pop shops and families and stuff like that. People on COBRA insurance. Because I've been schooled in all these other things, I figure if I have all this knowledge, may as well share it, right? Because we're all in this world for the same reason, really, just to be successful, take care of our families, and basically continue the environment that we're in, essentially, right? So I came up with the idea of Reclaim Your Premium because there is so much lack of information in the population in general when it comes to health insurance, right? A lot of individuals, and I kind of refer to them almost as civilians, if that makes sense, because it's a product. It's like, oh, I want this product, I'll hit buy. I want this one or this one or this one, or this one looks cool, so I'll buy this one, right? Without knowing necessarily what's behind it before they click that button, right?
Gotcha.
So essentially, Reclaim Your Premium is all about knowing more about what you currently have, because a lot of people just blindly spend money month after month after month after month.
What licenses do you have? Health, life?
I have a health and life license in all of the states that I'm in. I just don't write life. I'd rather refer that out to my individuals that do that on a full-time basis, because they have a little bit wider portfolio they can offer my clients, which is great. Right? States I'm fully licensed in as of now, I can expand up to 33 should I need, but I'm only licensed in 10 for right now, right? So I'm in Utah, Texas, Kansas, Wisconsin, Alabama, Ohio, Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida.
was that last one there?
Florida.
Florida. Fantastic. Excellent. All right. Well, that's fantastic, man. So if somebody needs, either whether it's an individual or it's a company starting at 2, you'll be able to assist them. They can scan that QR code. They can learn more about you, and they can get back on the right track and get the knowledge they need, get the answers to the questions they may have and the confusion they may have, especially if they're recently displaced out of the workplace. They want to look at their options to cover their family. You know, I'll tell you what, you know, America is really interesting. You know, you and I both know people don't change till the pain of the same is greater.
Yeah.
The pain of change. So they don't realize they need it, but it's critical. The reason you have health insurance in the first place, what if something happens? I mean, I just turned 50 yesterday, right? So it's on the top of my mind.
By the way, on your half century.
I feel great. I don't think anything is ever going to happen, but having health insurance and making sure it's the right coverage, that I'm getting an affordable rate at a premium with my particular budget is important. I may be able to handle a higher deductible than most people, so I could probably go with a higher deductible. Some people can't. You can go through all those options with them, right? I mean, and help somebody.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
So you're licensed in a lot of bigger states like Texas and Florida, Tennessee. Not yet, right? Tennessee?
No, not yet, but soon. Soon.
Fantastic. That's great.
Very soon. Yeah. A lot of individuals don't know that they have options, right? A lot of individuals think that, you know, hey, I just got to go on healthcare.gov or I have to go online to find things, right? Well, there's an entire private sector of health insurance that's not even tied to the marketplace, which is really, really great, right? And so a perk of being an advisor where I'm at, I have access to more things than brokers do. I have access to the stuff that they're not allowed to have access to.
Well, why don't you leave us with one thing about you that you want people to know if they never had the chance to talk to you, meet you, or hear another word that came from your mouth. In other words, they never got to see that great smile. They never got to laugh with you ever again. And you wanted them to know one thing about you. What one thing would you want them to know?
Man, a smile is contagious, right? All it takes is one smile to start another, and it continues to grow. Honestly, that's the best advice I can give, and the best thing I can say. 100% right there, man.
Find something that makes you happy and makes you smile, and make sure you're passionate about it, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I'm glad you found a place where you can work, from an engineer all the way to reclaim your premium. It was great learning your story. If you are looking to reclaim your premium and you're looking to, you know, get a new quote on your current insurance, or maybe you're in a situation where you need insurance, or maybe you have a company you want to provide insurance to your employees and you need to reevaluate that, then this is the man you need to talk to. Nicholas, it was great to meet you and great to talk to you again and see you always. I know we always see each other on the Happy Neighborhood Project, but it's great to get to know you a little bit and your story, sir. Appreciate you being with me.
It's hashtag reclaim your premium.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.